they do want jobs and they do want protection, and they know that I'm going to take care of that. And I've already been producing the jobs because Ford and General Motors and many other, they're pouring back into our country now. They want to be here. Lower taxes, we're lowering taxes bigly, including for the middle class, including for people, not just business taxes, but we're lowering business taxes and companies are pouring back in.
Who is the real Donald Trump in the sense that we've seen different versions appear on the campaign trail at times?
Well, whatever you see, that's what he is. He's a fighter, he's a best deal maker. He wants to bring America back to the feet, to the best possible way. And that's what you see. He has a days that he really feels that he needs to fight for himself, and that's how he will fight for the American people.
More than that, we're going to reform our business taxes in this country so that companies large and small can begin to compete with companies around the world again. And that'll create jobs. And we also know that by reducing taxes on businesses, we'll see wages rise in this country.
There's a lot of talk about impeachment if Democrats do take control of the House. Do you think Nancy Pelosi is already plotting an impeachment strategy?
Well, they're all talking about it, and so I take them at their word, even though some of them have decided to not talk about that quite so much. Look, the American people understand the choice in this election. Do we want to continue our nation on a path that's creating jobs, that's rebuilding our military, that's resulted already in new trade deals, now with Mexico, earlier with South Korea. It's changing America's economic dynamic in the world in a way that puts American workers first.
Not to mention the fact that we're actually getting big things done. We've overhauled the Veterans Administration. We're working tirelessly to rebuild our military, to advance the cause of life, and our tax reform bill is going to do so much to help so many people. And we want to work on getting people from welfare to work this year. We want to work on getting people into the careers they need now that we have an economy that's growing faster because of the policies we put in place. So we think we're going to have a great record to run on. It's going to be one whale of a fight. It always is in these midterm elections, but we feel good where we are.
A lot of folks believe that, in essence, Russia is still spying on the United States. You were former CIA guy, now Secretary of State. What's the answer to that?
Well, there's a long history, decades of history of Russia's efforts to undermine Western democracy. It was the Soviet Union for decades now, Russia for the last few. I don't expect that will stop. It is this administration's mission to raise the cost for Russian activity of that kind, to attempt to deter them. We're eyes wide open about Russians' efforts to undermine Western democracy. We're going to do our level best to stop them.
I certainly like the book that was written about the conservative heart. There's no question that we as conservatives have hearts, because ultimately it's hard to stay alive if you don't. But the reality of it is that on both sides of the aisle, no one has a monopoly on compassion or caring for those folks who are less fortunate. The truth of the matter is that we have done more good through free markets to alleviate poverty than any other country.
I mean, that stuff had been tried, failed in the Soviet Union, when the Pilgrims tried it. You know, it sounds beautiful. Bring all into the common storehouse, share and share alike. Sounded good in the New Testament church, and then eventually Apostle Paul had to figure out, okay, new rules. If you don't work, you don't eat. Pilgrims had to figure out, wow, let's try something different called private property. And you get to keep what you grow, what you produce. And everybody flourishes.
You know, you look at that situation that just occurred. How is it that an armed man can get inside of that school? Guess how hard it would be for that guy to get inside of a football stadium, or even into this building. And yet our most precious commodity, our children, you can get in there.
Let's all be responsible on what we're calling hate and what we're calling free speech, and just be able to honor differences of opinion. For those of us that are in government, or for those individuals that are in the leadership in journalism, we should be more responsible with the language that we use. And to me, it was just a gentle reminder to say, be careful on how you write your headlines.
In the process of putting those 3 bullet holes in our lobby, he put a 4th bullet in our building manager, Leo Johnson. He shot Leo Johnson and told the judge that he was here to kill as many of us as possible because we were listed by the Southern Poverty Law Center as a hate group. So does it really have any impact? Yeah, it has impact.
There's been a lot of reports the past couple of days about just a culture of sexual harassment here on the Hill. How is leadership responding to these reports?
You know, we've had a number of hearings just yesterday as well. I think you'll see a new bill introduced. It is unacceptable to have any sexual harassment, and you want to make sure that you have a safe environment at the same time. So part of what's happening, and my staff has gone through this, the entire staff has gone through sexual harassment training as well. And I think you'll see that not only just for members, but for all staff inside Congress, and an ability to report and any problems out there that to be able to solve.
We spent $700,000 studying Neil Armstrong's statement. Remember when he landed on the moon, he said, "One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." Well, some crazy person on the government side, they would spend $700,000 to study whether he said one small step for a man or one small step for man. And they spent $700,000 and still had no conclusion. They couldn't tell. They spent $500,000 recently having people take selfies of themselves, and if they were smiling, to see if that made them happier a month later. You know, that's just crazy. We're borrowing $1 million a minute and stuff like that.
And we need to stay focused on keeping the government funded, not playing these kind of partisan games. And I'm confident that later, even today, the House will take action to pass a budget deal that will keep the government funded, as well as the 6-year reauthorization of the Children's Health Insurance Program, the repeal of the medical device tax, the health insurance tax, as well as the Cadillac tax, all in an effort to bring down health care premiums in this country.